Good morning. Welcome to the Umpqua Unitarian Universalist Congregation. My name is Glennis Peterson, and I'll be your service leader today. This morning we will hear a talk from Leslie Chartier, all the way from Albany, and I will tell you a lot more about her in a little bit. As I light our chalice this morning, please consider the following words by Charles A. Howe. We light this chalice to affirm that new light is ever waiting to break through to enlighten our ways. That new truth is ever waiting to break through to illumine our minds. And that new love is ever waiting to break through to warm our hearts. May we be open to this light and to the rich possibilities that it brings us. Our opening words this morning are by Cynthia Landrum. Spirit of life and love, we gather together in different ways this morning. From computer screens, from telephones, from car radios, we gather, reaching out across the wires, waving from a safe distance, to come together in religious community, ready to be of service to each other, to the world, ready to build the community of hope and love, ready to be of service to each other, to the world, ready to build the community of hope and love. As we face this bright morning, we are apart, but we are together, offering our love, our commitment, our hope, and our prayers. In service to one another and this world, it is a new way, but an old way, that we come together in worship today. In our meditation this morning, I invite you now to join me in the spirit of meditation and imagination. Find a comfortable position in your seat and close your eyes. Take a deep breath and try to find the restorative power of air and water in that breath. We must breathe to live, but our bodies also need water to survive. Our bodies are more than half water. The air we breathe contains tiny droplets of water vapor. Can you feel them in your breath, flowing in and out of your body, like waves gently rolling in and out from the shore? Take in a deep breath with me now. Now notice your feet on the floor. Feel your connection to this meeting house and its old stone foundation, grounded in the earth, connecting us to the generations who have gathered here before us, ancestors whose presence lingers in this sacred space. What dreams and visions did they pursue here? Now imagine those ancestors calling on us to create a new community at the start of a new year. What sort of a community will we create? Ancient Hebrew tradition says that before the earth was created, the world was a wild ocean full of dangerous sea monsters. Our world may sometimes feel like a wild ocean. We may feel like we are fighting against impossibly strong sea monsters, but the waters are as mighty and powerful as the sea monsters, and that power runs in and through us with each breath, in and out. As we breathe, may we feel the rhythm of our breath, like the powerful waves crashing on the shores, turning and tumbling the largest boulders into the tiniest grains of sand. As we breathe in, may we feel the restorative power of air and water nourishing the cells of our bodies, giving us the power to pursue our wildest dreams for our community and our world. And as you breathe, notice the sounds. In like the whistle of the mighty ocean, out like the crashing of the powerful waves. Let us breathe and make these sounds together as we find our strength to begin the work of creation. This morning, I welcome Reverend Leslie Chartier, as our speaker. She lives in Albany with her spouse, Diana, and two very spoiled dogs. In addition to her ministry, she also works for the Employment Department for the state of Oregon in the new area of paid family and medical leave insurance for Oregonians. She enjoys gardening and art.
Good morning. I'm very glad to be with all of you today, even if virtual. Perhaps next we'll be able to see each other in person. However, for today, this is how we're doing things. I remember my spouse, a retired Presbyterian minister, telling me that everything is a sermon illustration. I may have been skeptical at one point in my life, but this sermon came from a very unlikely source. One day, in my small pile of junk mail, was a postcard. It was a warning that my magazine, Arthritis Today, was about to expire. Remember those days when we got a lot more fun magazines than that? The card ended up on my table, and eventually other papers were piled on it. And one day I looked down and it was covered in such a way that I could see, "Today is up for renewal." And I thought, wow, that'll preach. And in the time between when I was originally scheduled to preach and now, it became rather profound. In the span of those few months, it feels like 1,000 lifetimes have happened. Life was upended and the world changed overnight. Many of us now work from home, if we can work at all, have meetings remotely, and rarely shop for groceries, while we remain hugely grateful to service workers we never noticed before. In more evidence of the world gone mad, many of us find ourselves agreeing and feeling kindly toward George W. Bush and George Will. And Mitt Romney joined a Black Lives Matter protest. Whew, the world we knew just a few months ago is gone. I've heard many comments, perhaps about just skipping over 2020 since it has been so difficult. But I think rather these words by Leslie Dwight are closer to how I feel. What if 2020 isn't canceled? What if 2020 is the year we've been waiting for? A year so uncomfortable, so painful, so scary, so raw, that it finally forces us to grow. A year that screams so loud, finally awakening us from our ignorant slumber. A year we finally accept the need for change, declare change, work for change, become the change. A year we finally band together instead of pushing each other further apart. 2020 isn't canceled, but rather the most important year of them all. Ms. Dwight has received criticism of her poem. Some have said that it's another example of white privilege. I understand their point in that there's a long history of police brutality and death for Black Americans. But her poem was reflective of her own personal struggles currently. And in response to the criticism, Ms. Dwight replied, I think that people are feeling that they lack hope, but they need to remember it is still there. I totally understand getting to the point of depression or having a tough time just in general. But maybe, just maybe, she's right. And this is the year that is finally up for renewal. As the pandemic began to unravel our daily life, and people were so wanting a return to normal, I saw many people saying they didn't want to return to normal, whatever normal might be. We know there are injustices in our world, and that is a normal that we don't want any longer. I've heard it said the virus was the kindling, and police brutality lit the fire. And oh, how the fire has burned brightly. It seems like a logical step that out of this burning morass should come a phoenix arising from the ashes, a phoenix renewed. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines renewal as to make like new, restore to freshness, vigor, or perfection. It also defines renewal as in being spiritually reborn and restored to a better, higher, or more worthy state. I've always thought of renewal or rebirth as something clean and fresh. I'm not really sure why, because birth is not clean. It's bloody and it's painful. And plants that push their way through the soil in the spring, it's hard and dirty work. The present renewal more closely resembles that kind of rebirth or renewal. It's not a pretty, shiny time. It's a movement of the people forged from centuries of injustice of the backs and necks of marginalized people, particularly those who inhabit Black and brown bodies. It involves blood and tear gas and hard work. Most religions have a version of the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Then there is the platinum rule: treat others the way they want to be treated. We Unitarian Universalists are a justice-seeking people. We lean toward the platinum rule in treating others as they would like to be treated. The new revolution isn't just about treating Black citizens better. It's about owning our own white privilege and acknowledging the role white privilege and white supremacy had in getting us to where we are. We now need to work toward eradicating it, and that's we, the white people, need to do that work. And it's hard. We must look for good models of how to do it. I grew up in a blue-collar family. The idea of having privilege would have made my parents laugh. But that's kind of the insidious part of understanding this complicity. White privilege isn't something you're bestowed in some sort of a grand ceremony. It takes an awareness of the world and getting out of ourselves long enough to gain understanding. I grew up in a very white small town in Ohio. My family looked around and saw people who looked like ourselves, only we were in an economically lower group. But had we looked at a wider circle, would we have had seen our white privilege in play? I don't know. I believe the story from the Story People, a daily thought site, is very appropriate. When you are a child, someone close to you will plant a seed of belief inside you. If you water it, nurture it, then over time it'll grow broad and strong. But sometimes, when it is a hurtful belief like racism, it is your responsibility to chop that sucker down. Because of the beliefs that were planted when I was a child, I'm determined to chop that sucker down. Some legacies break people rather than build them up, and I don't want to continue those kinds of legacies. Fortunately, I moved to a large city after I graduated from high school. There was much more diversity in general, and as I became aware of other people's lives, there was a cognitive dissonance I had to resolve. What I learned as a child versus my direct experience of people who were different than me. I was blessed with people who helped me understand more of the world in very gentle ways. Those of us who view the world in a spiritual way, whether that be Christian, Jewish, Muslim, humanist, or pagan, we want the people of the world to reflect our best intentions, our best selves. We want to fix not only our broken environment, but also our broken people. And the time for renewal is at hand. Growing up, my experience was built on a white paradigm. That's all I knew. Even the picture of Jesus that hung in my grandmother's room was of a white, blue-eyed Jesus. And if we believe that Jesus was the incarnation of God, let us also remember that that incarnation inhabited a brown body. It's unlikely his eyes were blue. It's just another example of how we center our world in whiteness. This renewal is very much a spiritual matter. It's a spiritual practice for me every day to try to keep my mind open to new ways of living and being. It's a spiritual practice to learn the new ways. Renewal requires opening yourself up to new ways of thinking and feeling. Daniel Abraham, an American novelist, wrote this in The Price of Spring. We say that flowers return every spring, but that's a lie. It is true that the world is renewed. It is also true that renewal comes at a price. For even if the flower grows from an ancient vine, the flowers of spring are themselves new to the world, untried and untested. The flower that wilted last year is gone. Petals once fallen are fallen forever. Flowers do not return in the spring, rather they are replaced. It is in this difference between returned and replaced that the price of renewal is paid. And as it is for spring flowers, so it is for us. It is a new kind of world, but one that we have an ability to help shape. I do not think it's a coincidence that the Black Lives Matter movement regenerated after a period of solitude from the COVID-19 pandemic. As Benjamin Sulola, a Nigerian life developer, Bible teacher, life coach, and author said, effective practice of solitude always gives birth to freshness, renewal, refocus, rejuvenation, revelation, and restoration. We had the time to look at the world around us and realize that this is not how we want to live. We do not want to return to our former normal. We want a more equitable world and are willing to sacrifice for whatever that might take. Renewal must begin first in your hearts. In the words of poet C. Joy Bell C., in order to change the world, you must first change yourself. In order to have the right to see what is wrong with the world, You must first earn that right through seeing what is wrong with yourself. We do not become influencers, leaders, and teachers through pulling on our better attributes and applying those better attributes to a broken world like a healing balm. Rather, we become influencers, leaders, and teachers in this world by performing within ourselves the purging that we wish to see take place in others. I invite you to take this journey with me. Today is very, very much up for renewal. Amen.
Our closing words this morning are from Gary Kowalski. Go in peace. Speak the truth. Give thanks each day. Respect the earth and her creatures, for they are alive like you. Care for your body. It is a wondrous gift. Live simply. Be of service. Be guided by your faith and not your fear. Go lightly on your path and walk in a sacred manner. As I extinguish the chalice this morning, please consider the following words by Amy Zucker Morgenstern. Blessed is the dark in which our dreams stir and are revealed. Blessed is the dark of earth where seeds come to life. Blessed are the depths of the ocean where no light shimmers, the womb of all earthly life. Blessed is the light into which we awake, the light that sparkles on the waters, that calls the tree forth from the seed, and calls the shadow forth from the tree. Blessed are we as we move through darkness and through light.